Hello, I'm Mario Anderson, and welcome to In Focus Kentucky, where we take a look at issues that matter to you right here in the Bluegrass State. Each week we talk to the lawmakers, community organizers, and people like you who help shape those policies. On today's episode, we're taking a look at House Bill 528, which is now Kentucky law, that encourages joint custody and equal parenting time in custody cases after a divorce or separation. Now, Governor Matt Bevin signed House Bill 528 into law back in April, and it took effect in July. Under the law, judges must begin each custody case with the presumption that joint custody and equally shared parenting time are best for the children. Judges can then consider other factors such as whether each parent has a history of domestic violence before deciding whether joint custody is appropriate. Now, there have been several advocates who have spent many months talking and advocating for this new law in Kentucky. Matt Hale is the Kentucky chair for the National Parent Organization, and Dr. Ryan Schroeder is the Sociology Department chair at U of L and has testified in support of this law. Thank you both for joining us here on In Focus Kentucky.
Thank you for having us, Mario.
Hey, happy to have you for sure. And we'll start with you, Matt. Let's first talk, for viewers that aren't really familiar with the National Parents Organization. What is that organization and what type of work do you all do?
Well, we advocate for good family law. We encourage laws that stop parental conflict or lessen it if possible. And we also encourage lawmakers to embrace shared parenting when possible. And as you just addressed, it says that shared parenting is equal time with both parents, and it's also joint custody, which means equal decision making, legal decision making. So there's two parts to it, and we encourage shared parenting.
And talk about this new legislation. How did your organization kind of zone in on the importance of wanting to get this conversation started to make it a law in Kentucky?
Well, in 2014, the National Parents Organization looked at all 50 states and graded each state, and Kentucky unfortunately got a D-. So Kentucky's families were particularly stressed by a lack of shared parenting. So the National Parents Organization focused on Kentucky and changing that, and we were effective. It took about 4 or 5 years of work, but Kentucky now has what many are calling the best shared parenting law in the country.
And share with us, we kind of touched on it earlier in the opening of the show, but what is the law and kind of what is the definition that is now law here in the state?
Well, there are 4 parts to the law. They are for permanent orders for child custody, temporary orders for child custody, modifying orders, and also military orders. And in all 4 cases, there is a presumption that equal parenting time and joint custody, equal decision making, is in a child's best interest. Now, there are some safeguards for children and for families. There are 11 factors that would stop or limit shared parenting if a parent or a situation doesn't apply.
And you're the Sociology Department chair at U of L in Louisville. You testified in Frankfort in front of legislators and shared a lot of research about what you all have found and why there was support needed for this law. Talk about some of that research that you shared with legislators.
Sure. So one of my goals is to highlight the use of research in promoting public policy, good public policy, as well as improving the lives of our citizens. And so what I brought in was research on the effects of having both parents involved in children's lives. And it's entirely clear across a variety of different outcomes, from education to delinquency to drug use to teenage sexual behavior and everything in between, that children who have contact with both parents, meaningful contact with both parents, fare better across all of those different outcomes.
And what did some of your research show about children who are affected by, being in a divorced parent situation? What did the research show?
Sure. So there's a long body of research that shows that coming from a divorced family increases risks for emotional, social, and behavioral problems. And so one of the great things about shared parenting is that it keeps both parents involved, and the research is very clear that having both parents involved in the lives of children, even if the parents are divorced, promotes more favorable outcomes.
And when you were delivering your testimony, what was some of the reactions and feedback you were receiving from legislators in Frankfort?
The legislators were really responsive to listening to what the research had to say and to craft laws that fit the research.
And Matt, what about your work with the legislators? How was it? Was it easy working with the legislators? Were there lots of support on both sides with getting this into now law?
Well, Mario, we have some of the best lawmakers in the country. They were very open to talking with us. They were very receptive to talking with not just people that were talking about research, but talking with the individual parents. I'm a shared parent, and I talked about some of the things that have happened and what I've seen in my life, and they were very receptive to it. And I think part of that reason is that shared parenting is the point where research, like what Dr. Schroeder's talking about, and common sense come together. And the lawmakers, they're out there talking with their constituents, and many of them have experienced divorce in their lives or in their family. And so, therefore, they know what common sense is, and they jumped on board pretty quickly.
Well, we are, number one, happy to have you here on the program to discuss this particular topic that is important to the state of Kentucky. And we're going to continue the conversation here on In Focus Kentucky as we are just getting started with Matt Hale and Dr. Ryan Schroeder. And they'll be back in our next segment. But your local weather on the One's forecast is coming up after this break.